Well, everyone's Matt Rosick. This will be the, I guess, second work in progress, technically first work in progress, second video of the SMS recast of the Neo grade, the Neo grade, hold on, the SMS recast of the Neo grade 1/60th Hyaku Shiki conversion kit. So I've kind of caught up on some of my figure stuff. I'm in a kind of a holding pattern on one of the projects, so I figure I'll start doing the cleanup on this piece. So the first step I did is I went through and did a parts check. And I think I may be missing two pieces, number 69 and 70. So I'm going to start the cleanup and see if I find those. If not, more than likely, I can't get replacement parts for this kit anywhere that I know of. So I'll have to contact my client and say, hey, look, I'm missing these two pieces. These look like these are armor pieces. Hopefully they're for like the arm or the leg, and I can just use the original armor pieces that come with the perfect grade kit. Otherwise, I'll have to figure something out. So anyway, so far everything's here except for those two pieces that I can see. Just got everything piled up here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start cleaning these up. So what I do is I'm not gonna do a whole lot of this on video because it's the same thing over and over again, and this is a very, very time-consuming process. So the tools I use is some X-Acto knives. I have a really inexpensive scribing tool. I don't use it too often. G-Temple. A lot of guys use the BMC chisels and stuff like that. I never invested in those just because I don't do any scratch building. Come down here. But for rescribing panel lines, the back of an X-Acto blade works perfectly for me. That's what I've always used to rescribe panel lines. You're gonna need this, at least the way I do it, a Sharpie, some sanding sticks. I'm gonna start off with some like 100 grit. Let's see what else I got in here. 180 maybe. Yeah. So that's what we're gonna do. So I already started kind of on this back skirt piece. And I've already kind of gone in and started to rescribe the panel lines. So I do that on all these kits because by the time I get done with paint, primer, and clear coat, they get filled in. So I go through and I just really deepen them quite a bit. So I'll show you on the back side. So on this, you can see here I've already gone through and deepened it, and this side has not had anything done to it. Now they're deep enough already in the kit that I don't need to use any Dymo tape or anything as a guide. I just take the back of my blade like this, and I'm just gonna lightly score it just a few times. And I do this pretty deep because, again, this is gonna get several rounds of primer and sanding and paint and everything, and I don't want these to get filled in before I do panel lines. So I'll go through this a few times going one direction, and I'll turn around, and I'll come back from the other direction. That just helps clean it out. And I don't put a lot of pressure on until I get 2 or 3 passes, because if you try to go all at once pass, you're not going to do a very good job, and it's going to slip, and you're going to end up having to do some repair. So just like that, okay? And we got a nice deep panel line. I'll take all the paint and primer that we're going to put on it. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So this is a new blade. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually break the tip off the blade. So I have a slightly thicker, you can kind of make your own custom chisels depending on how much of the tip of the blade you break off. The more you break off, the thicker the line will be. And it's a square line, so you're not cutting into the resin. You can see here this guy kind of gets clogged up in the corner. So that's why you come from the other direction. Cleans out that corner. So I'll do this side, and I'll show you the difference between this side and the other side. Now this line right here is pretty shallow, so I'm going to start really, really light. I tend to do this scribing the panel lines first, and then go through and clean up the gates and stuff. Again, this panel line is pretty light right here. If this was an original kit, this would be much more defined. But since it's a recast, it's lost a little bit of its detail. And after going through and doing a parts check, the casting on this kit is not as good as I initially thought. There's some pieces that can require quite a bit of work. So the trick is when you get to a corner, I have to pause because my wife is grinding something downstairs and you can probably hear it. So again, just starting lightly and slowly. Sorry about the blending noise in the background. I don't know why they're doing that right now, but they are. So I'm going to pause until they're done. Okay. So, yeah, so we just go in here and just, slowly make these deeper. And this side you can see has been done, and this side has not. I think you can see that. So that's what we do. So go through and do all of this stuff on each. I'm not gonna go. What I do is I clean up a piece at a time. So I'll do like the panel lines on this piece, and then I'll clean the gates and stuff. So let's work on this piece here in this video, and then I'll continue. And then if I come to a different like technique somewhere else on another piece, I'll record again. But it's the same technique on all the pieces. Again, if it's really shallow to begin with, you have to really be careful and just really start with a light score of your tool. And you need to switch it up, go from different directions, because what happens is all this residue gets caught in the corners. It makes it hard to get a nice sharp edge. So it looks pretty good. I don't have a little toothbrush. I usually have a little toothbrush nearby, and I can use it to get the dust out of a little stiff brush to get the residual stuff out of the panel line, because you want to get that out of there. Now, some guys, I don't do this typically because I usually don't panel line like this edge, but some guys will go in here and they'll actually score this line too. I'll do it on one. I'll come in here and I'll do this with their scribing tool, whatever they're using, chisel or, my knife. Because I'll run a panel line in that corner there. And again, it gives it a nice sharp line for the wash to go down into. I don't do this. I usually don't panel line this part because this gets painted a different color. I think I've done it on a few kits, but I typically don't. I just do a few little passes. And again, that just cleans up that edge and gives your panel line wash, whatever tool you're going to use, just a little sharper. You can't see that I've done anything, but it's there. It will make a difference if you go and panel line that. So like you can't tell the difference between this side and that side where I didn't do anything. Okay, so that's the panel lines. Now for the gates. So this is where a Sharpie comes into play. What I like to do So I take a Sharpie and I'll go through and I'll mark around the gates in any like resin sludge like this. Okay. And then I'll take some crappy nippers. Just don't use good nipper. Use really shitty nippers because you'll destroy. Don't get your god hands out and do this because you will destroy them with one clip. Clip off most of the gate as much as you can. Don't try to cut it flush because you'll tear out the resin and you'll create putty work that's not necessary. I've got a metal file here, and I'll use a metal file to kind of get the initial stuff off. And what that Sharpie does, it acts as a guide, a sanding guide to let you know if you get that gate off all the way. This file's actually about had it. It's got some, I think I was filing something that had glue on it. I got glue on the file. I like a metal file over a sanding stick because it's a hard surface and I know I'll get a perfectly flat surface. So initially I'll go over with a file. Now you can see that the Sharpie's starting to go away. That means it's almost flat. Once that Sharpie's gone, I know I've got the gate gone and it's flat. Just like that. Okay, now, see this gate was right on the edge. There's actually a flat line here. This is what takes forever. So this is supposed to be a bevel right there on this edge. Same with this, all the way around. And I'm trying to clean up a bevel. Since the gate was kind of right there on the corner, I'll start off with the sanding stick, just real light. That Sharpie shows me. Shows me my bevel's even. So like right here, I like to get a brand new blade and scrape it. You see I have a rectangle of red there? That shows me that my bevel is even all the way across. Just like that. And we'll do this edge. And then I'll come back over here and do this edge. I'll get a better sense once I prime. I'll probably have to do these again a little bit, but there you go. That's kind of the beginnings of that. And I'll take a 180 stick. I'm not gonna, I don't finish this out with when I'm doing this part, I don't finish it out with 600 or 800 grit sandpaper because these are gonna get primed and everything's gonna get sanded. So I'll just use a 180 to kind of clean it up a little bit. Now the tricky thing about Sharpie is that if you use, this is all going to get base coated in lacquer paints and stuff. If you use an acrylic, this can bleed through your acrylic paint. So it's very important that you get all the Sharpie off if you're using acrylic, especially if you're using an acrylic primer and stuff like that. It can come through. So that's why a lot of guys who see me do this, they're like, oh, you can't do it, it'll bleed. Well, it depends on what kind of paint you use. But yeah, this file's trash. I need to throw that away. It's got glue in it, so it's not. Here's a good one. So again, I got that Sharpie there. I'm gonna use the file initially. And then we're gonna come in with the 180. Now I can see here these little inclusions, little imperfections. So I'll go back in and I'll hit that with a Sharpie again. And I'll sand it until that's gone. There's a little bit of a gate right here that I just saw. Very small. Cut that off. This initial cleanup, even though this takes a while, this is just the very first step in cleanup. Typically, on a kit like this will all get sanded down, primed. That will get sanded. It'll get primed again, and then the I'll look for more imperfections, and usually after 3 rounds of sanding and priming, it's ready for paint. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Come over here and get this gate. See, they put this gate right on this bevel here. I don't like when they do that because bevels are hard, can be hard to get even. Okay, so again, that gate was kind of right on that bevel right here. This is supposed to be an even bevel, similar to this side, but they put the gate right on there. So we're going to come through, I'm going to put a little sharpening, and I'm just going to lightly start with the sanding stick. And I'm going to finish up with my razor blade. Like that. Noticing that this bevel is a little soft, so we're going to color all the way around it. When you do this, you want to make sure you get Sharpie on the top and the bottom of the bevel, because that's where it's going to let you know if you're even. So as soon as you start to scrape, see, that's kind of a circular shape. Oh, that's not a flat bevel, so we're going to go until we get a rectangle. There we go. So now we got a flat bevel, and you can finish up with the sanding stick on the top of them, and that'll get you a sharp edge. And a lot of my buddies have these bevel. They make these really cool. Some of them make custom, like homemade. It's a razor blade with a certain angle glued to a stick and stuff like that. Tim does that, and a bunch of other guys. Okay, so now this piece has had the initial cleanup done. So the next step is what I'm going to do. Actually, you need to order more of these sent out of brand new superfine sanding sponges. So I take a superfine sanding sponge from 3M, and I give the whole thing a light sanding. Actually, I missed some gate right here. Okay, just get a light sanding. I'm not pushing real hard. This just gives the surface a better surface for primer to stick to. These all will get washed really well too to get the mold release off. Again, I'm just basically kind of just wiping over, not really sanding. So these areas I know I'm going to paint a different color, so I'll try to make sure I get those scuffed up really good so they can accept masking and all that stuff. And that's basically it for the first step of cleanup. So Re-Scribe the panel lines, clean the gate off, fix any bevels, light sanding, and then this is ready for to be washed and primed. So I'm going to do that about 200 more times. And then if I come up to a piece where there's anything like a different technique or anything as far as cleanup goes, I'll record that, but it's the same process. Like I just saw a little bit of a flash right here, I just missed. And I'll do that. I'll think I'm done with the piece and I'll see flash or something somewhere. I use the side of a blade a lot. It's kind of one of my favorite tools for cleaning up for a brand new blade. So that's it. So I'm going to repeat that over and over and over again until that step's done on everything. And then I'll come back. All right, still cleaning up all these pieces. This is what I've gotten done so far. So I got a good amount done. Still got a bunch. Still got to do all that over there. So making good progress. I'll have these cleaned up today. But I want to kind of show you a couple other techniques I use for cleaning up pieces. Excuse me, I'm burping. So like for this guy, where I got this like cylinder shape, this is like the mold line's right down the middle here. So I've already taken out the gate and I marked the mold line with my Sharpie. So this has some like lines in here that are a little thicker. So I take a piece of paper, this is 240, and I fold it over and I'll go in there and I'll sand out the mold line and those grooves like this, just to get that out. And where it's rounded here, I'll take this and I'll use it and I'll curve it to keep from trying to distort the shape too much. Now these usually don't mold in a perfect circle. They tend to mold a little oblong anyway. And you can never tell once they're all painted and stuff, but it's always best not to use a stick on these because they're rounded. You'll just put a flat spot. So take this is 240, like I said, 240 again. And I just sand until that mold line, that Sharpie's gone. Right. You can see it's starting to go away. Now here, this is a flat. This area is flat, so I can hit that with a sanding stick. And then I found in my sanding stick stash a 240 stick, which is really good. Like the final sanding on this stuff. And like I said, I don't take this like to a 600 or 800 grit on this step because this is all get primed, and most of that primer is going to fill in most of these scratches anyway. I won't go to a 600 or 800 till I do the final sanding before paint, because it's just not necessary to go that high at this point in the process. And you'll just be killing yourself you'll just spend way too much time sanding on stuff you don't need to. Okay, so now here I got a little flat spot here too. Right here, that's like a part of a hexagon or whatever. So I'm going to sand that with a sanding stick. This mold line is pretty bad. It's actually not a mold line, it's a step, meaning that the mold, where it's molded, it slips. So one side's a little higher than the other. It's not that bad of a step, but it's still a step. And those are the worst to clean up, especially if it's really bad. I've had to resculpt pieces before because they're so bad. So I'm gonna use my X-Acto blade to scrape that away. That'll give me a perfectly flat spot. It takes care of that. Now in here I got two little detail areas. There's a part right here, and there's a slight little detail line right there. I'm going to try to avoid sanding that I got my paper folded over. I'm going to take the edge of the paper right up to that detail line and just go back and forth. I should maybe get a new piece of paper. This one's been used quite a bit. Just real carefully. So I'm kind of taking this paper and I'm letting it kind of follow the shape on its own. I can tell that this shape overall is squished anyway. It's not perfectly round. And you don't worry about that because by the time it's all painted and put together, you can't tell. Okay, I'm gonna hit this top little detail part. Again, this paper's getting a little worn out. and just contouring the paper to see on that area. So it's pretty good. Now what I do is I follow that up with the sanding sponge because that can conform to the shape pretty well and get in there and finish it up. So that mold line's gone. That little detail is still there. It's shallow, but it's there. And I got these two little spots right here on the end here that are rounded, and there's the mold. The step goes there too. So we're gonna again take the paper and conform it to the shape. Like that, and then I'll follow that up again with the fine sanding sponge. There you go. So now also, if you notice, this piece is kind of shiny. That's the mold release. We'll take care of that after we get all this cleaned up. So a lot of times what I'll do is when I do these conversion kits is instead of doing this where I clean everything up at one time, I'll like clean up. I'll have the master grade or the plastic parts also. I'll clean up like an arm and put it together and so forth. This time I decided to kind of consolidate the steps. I'm going to clean this all up. I'm going to give it I'll give everything a bath right after this, just so they're clean. And then I'll get out the perfect grade kit, which has been pre-assembled. I'll have to take it all apart and cannibalize it for the parts I need. And then we'll do some test fitting and stuff. But that's a technique on those parts like that, rounded. These thrusters are another good example. Now, I just sent all my, I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt. I just sent my friend Floyd all my old Gundam metal parts. I just gave them to him. I'm kind of wishing I didn't, because I would have replaced these with metal. I may have to call him back and have him send me some big thrusters, because these are not very good. I mean, I can clean them up, I guess. Let's see. What I like on these is the I like the detail on the inside right there. It's pretty cool. So like on these, first thing I got to do is I got to, oops, they're slippery. I got to kind of bring back all these detail lines. So I like to do the panel lines first, because then I can do the rest of the sanding without worrying about destroying those. And I also have been using my little chisel. I went to a 0.2 millimeter chisel, and it's been working well. Yeah, I meant to give him a call and say, hey, I need some of those thrusters back. Because these are not very good. Yeah, I think we're going to replace these. I just don't think they're casted well enough. The time it would take to clean these up is not worth it, I don't think. So I need to get some of those back. Yeah, there's like resin sludge in there, so I'm not going to even use those. I'll either buy some or... actually, I should buy some at my local hobby store. Let's see what else can I show you technique-wise for cleaning up. I think that part kind of showed a little bit of everything. Yeah, so I'm just going to continue on with these, and then once we're done, I'll give them a bath, get all the dust off and everything, clean up my workbench, and then we'll break out the perfect grade kit and start test fitting things together. So I think this video I'm going to call done. Just basically Resin Cleanup 101, how to clean up mold lines, steps, gates, and stuff like that. Again, a lot of people ask me if resin's hard to work with. It's not really hard. It's just very time consuming. It can be difficult if the resin's cheap and brittle. You have to be careful. It'll crack out. It'll break. If it's badly casted, then you got a lot more cleanup, maybe some resculpting to do. But it's like working with plastic. It's just the prep is way more involved. And a lot of that has to do with the casting quality. When I first did the unboxing of this kit, I thought it looked pretty good. As I'm getting into it, it's not as good as I thought. There's a lot of mold lines are worse. Some of the details are pretty soft. which is rare for an SMS kit. Usually they're pretty good, but this one is lacking in some details. I'm having to go back and Re-Scribe and stuff. So anyway, this will end up work in progress 1, Resin Cleanup 101, and then when we come back, we'll do some test fitting. We'll do some actual building and stuff and go from there.
And as always, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.